Hello.
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 Hi.
Hello.
Oh, good to see you.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Hello.
I love the
Hey.
pod. I don't know if I'm turning off on, but
Hey, so welcome to another really special episode of Living the Dream. I was not aware that this is the 20th anniversary of Leonardo's efforts to better the world with amazing music and his love for good food and great musicians, right? In that order. And tonight we have John Kelman as sort of like special guest and like the master of disaster. So he will have to ask the questions tonight.
master of disaster. Thank you. No, I'm not sure whether that's I mitigate disaster or create them. You know. So
Anyway, here we go. Yeah.
okay, so hi guys. I know some of you. So hello, and I really love. There's a Patricia McLaughlin who has a pug as her avatar. She doesn't. I don't know if she's signed on yet or not. Anyway, sorry, I'm a dog freak. So yeah, this is an opportunity to actually really spend some time with Leonardo, who's been a friend of mine since almost the 20 years of the label. You and I first met in person in 2006 in Montreal when you were with Hatfield in the North.
Yes.
With Alex McGuire was on keys, and Mark Fletcher had just been dropped in as a drummer because Pilot died like less than a month ago.
Before, and I received a call from, I was touring with Roy Babington, Gary Boyle, and Mark Fletcher, and then Phil Miller called me. He said, look, Phil died. People died, and,
Yeah.
and then we met, but we were talking, discussing, about music and other stuff since you discovered that I put Softworks together. I think that was around 2003, 2002.
But you may not know that even though that was the first time we first interacted, and it was, but actually I did buy the very first MoonJune Records album, Bartork, with Elton Dean and Mark Hewins. So I actually went right back to the beginning. I just wasn't necessarily writing yet, or I was just starting to write about music around that time. So, but yeah, you've been, I mean, it's kind of remarkable to look at the progress of the label because, at the beginning, it seemed to be to a certain extent revolving around, Italian progressive rock groups and a soft machine access of people. But, over the course of the first maybe 5 years, it started to open up, and really but really what happened, what I see anyway, is the label kept growing at a time when most labels were struggling, and by 2014, which I think is your biggest year yet, it looks like you released over 20 albums that year.
Yeah, maybe 15, 16 albums, because it was just accumulation of the things. And, I think you're true. You're right.
But I wanted to start with the beginning, actually, for people who don't know you that well, and I don't know if that's the case here, but there's some things. You're a multinational, not just a binational, but a multinational guy, speaks multiple languages. Can you talk a bit about your sort of early days? And I'm thinking about more the things that you did that prepared you for becoming both MoonJune Records and MoonJune Music for booking and stuff.
Everything, as you know, and you are one of the guys that know me better than anybody else. Everything happened by accident, but it was a very good accident. But I was always a music lover since I lived as a kid in former Yugoslavia, then grew up in Italy. I was a record collector, and I was always feeling kind of out of touch with the current reality of my generation, because I always was, when I was a teenager, I was always going after those guys that have long hair. And because I just watched the Woodstock and I say, oh, you have long hair, you must be fan of Jimi Hendrix. Then I just started collecting albums, and I'm not a musician, and I love the music, and everything happened kind of organically. Then when I was in Italy, my best friend in Italy, Vittorino Cucci, who is a relatively known free jazz sax player and also poet. He organized with Pino Minafra Europa Jazz Festival, which is free jazz festival in southern Italy, and I was kind of helping, and I had a chance to hang out with John Sarman and Keith Tippett and Misha Mengelberg and all those kind of monsters of improvised music, Hans Reichel, and all those guys that I was hanging out were kind of much older than me. Like, now I have a lot of friends that are younger than me, but in those days, I was born in 1962. Most of my friends were born between 46 and 55, and that's the thing. Like, if you were in 60s, you are my friend. But that doesn't mean that I'm stuck in 60s. Like, I listen very kind of contemporary music. But and then when I came to New York, I had a chance to work, to meet this Brazilian guy, Fernando Natalici, photographer and designer, by accident, as everything else. And I joined his company, Studio T Graphics, which is a kind of legendary downtown graphic company that had most of the clients in music business. He befriended Hilly Crystal, the late great owner of CBGBs in 1970, started doing ads, virtually like graphics since the first day. Then, and then he just developed this kind of company. Then when I came in 1990, when I met him, if you open Village Voice that doesn't exist anymore, you see like 7 to 10 pages of ads. When I was there in 1990, when I came, like we were doing like over 75 ads for clubs, and promoters. Like from a very small kind of transgender kind of Brazilian club in a Hell's Kitchen to kind of Metropolitan and John Sher Metropolitan and Ron Delsner, kind of Pink Floyd at Yankee Stadium or something like. And I had access to go to see the shows, like to Trump, or to Irving Plaza, which is just around the corner where it used to be my office. And then I met people, normally I was going to pick up the checks from this, promoters, and then one day I was in a Carnegie Hall picking up check from a promoter. And then I was just sitting and I was waiting. This guy was on the phone, waiting. And there is Aretha Franklin, passing by. And she said to me, "Hello, darling." I say, "Wow," that was kind of, this kind of thing. So like, Fernando was also a photographer, and we just, he was called like last moment to do a party in Soho, and it was David Bowie, like, with Grace Jones, and I was kind of always in the music business, and Fernando was friend of Jim Igo, since 1973, 74, when he became a jazz buyer at the JNR, very famous a record store here in downtown New York that doesn't exist anymore. And I was always in middle of the music. And then Fernando was also a photographer, as I said before. And then today this thing doesn't exist. But before, like record labels, they used to do like this kind of 8x10 kind of, photos, like glossy. And then everybody that Jim Igo sent, like, and you see like Hamid Bouek with humongous baritone sax. Then you have John Scofield. Then you have Ayrton and Flora. And of course, I speak Portuguese, and they're my heroes. And and then you see Egberto Gismonti, like all these guys, like and virtually since I came to New York, a few months after I came, I was always in the middle of the music.
Yeah.
And I'm still, because I like music. I don't play music, but I love the music because I don't think that I will be able to imagine my life without music.
That I understand. And but so you kind of got your skills by osmosis just through being in there and working in the graphics company. It's just because by like 2001 you'd already been, I think, booking tours at that point. Yeah.
Oh, yes and no. But this is a story. Like in 1999, Jim Igo and myself and Fernando Natalici started a record label called Music Magnet Media. And we had a couple of investors with very big money. And we released only 9 records. But we supposed to release on the first time legendary Italian records run by Aldo Sinesio, Horror Records. Probably Pete Levin, who is here, maybe remembers, because they have that famous album of Gil Evans, Parabola. And then we had also a couple of other kind of labels from 60s, 70s that needed release on CD. Remember that in 1999, that was almost the golden era of CDs, of reissues. And ourselves like graphic people, and having a experienced guy in a promotion in a jazz marketing like Jim Igo, we were just a perfect team like to do that. But unfortunately, nothing happened because these investors say, "Oh, goodbye," we are not interested, and we spend a lot of time and money. And then in meanwhile, when Elton Dean, I reconnected with Elton Dean, he was telling me about this thing that I found on internet, software, Keith Tippett, Elton Dean, Hugh Hopper, Joe Marshall, and then and I met Elton in the 80s in Italy. We became good friends. We reconnected in 2000. He said, "Oh, let's do this soft machine reunion." Then I spoke to Jim Igo. He said, "Okay, we can include that in a jazz magnet, in a music magnet media company." But because nothing happened, I said, maybe I can do that with MoonJune. But in meanwhile, I had such a great interest by accident and various circumstances from Japan and Europe, and I didn't release first Softworks album. I, licensed to Universal Japan and Scott Provoke Europe and let's say. But then Elton told me, "Look, I have this recording from a few years ago, live recording with Mark Hewins. Would you like to help me?" And he needed money, those that know this. A legend from the British jazz and former soft machine musician.
Yeah,
struggled with financially and also health wise, and and drugs, and and he needed money, and he was my friend, and and I had some kind of money in those days, and I was doing very well, and that's how I helped him. He needed money, help, and I created Softworks on one side and gave him some money to release this album. And then I also released 2 albums of Italian progressive rock bands that I befriended in those days. And with 3 records in May of 2001, they arrived from the factory. Actually, Finisterre's album arrived in February for other reasons. And in May, around my birthday, like tomorrow is my birthday, around my birthday, other 2 albums of DFA and Dean Hewins arrived to my office. And I went to Progressive Rock Festival at Near Fest. As a complete outsider, I had my merch table and said,
but that's three good albums to start with. Finisterre was already known.
Yeah, they're known among the fans of progressive rock, and they from Italy contacted me because they played in '97 at Progressive Rock Festival. They had some follow-up here in the USA, especially in Mexico. And actually, that was my first tour. I never been to now I've been to Mexico 25 times, but before 2001, I never been to Mexico. But I knew some people, and I put them tour like 7 gigs in Mexico, of which one for 4,000 people, opening for Peter Hamill, and that was my first tour in February, end of February, beginning of April, March of 2001, and that's why Finisterre's album was, even though it's serial number 2, MJR02, it was manufactured before other 2 albums.
Right.
That's how my career as a MoonJune Global Media, that's how I call company those days, started in February booking, which actually started in late 2000, negotiating gigs with people that I never met in person, that, because I speak Spanish, I went on the phone. I knew only one guy, and that guy hooked me up with everybody else. And it was just happening. I say, wow, things are happening. And I still had a very good job in this graphic company, Studio T. And I said, okay, this will be kind of my side thing, my hobby. But see, today, still kind of, I cannot live from label, but, still it's kind of, it's growing like 115 releases, it's a lot.
Well, you've had a lot. I mean, the last few years have been particularly fertile, I think. You've been getting a lot more recognition. You've been hitting high in the polls in Downbeat, All About Jazz, and other places. You were getting, fairly significant interviews. I think it's sort of like it's all kind of come together over time. It's sort of built up, and you've kind of hit critical mass. But you also are in a situation where you're able to support. I mean, I often, when I do this. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay. No, I often compare you to ECM Records for a number of reasons, even though you're extremely different. But the things that I think are comparable are the fact that you bring together musicians who seem to be completely incompatible, and yet they come together and they do wonderful things. And I also think that, you know, you're a more active producer than many. So, you know, but, you know, one of the things ECM's been able to do is, like, you know, for every Trygve Syme album, you know, they put out, they've got a Keith Jarrett Colton concert. So, I mean, they've got albums that sell really well, albums that don't. You have got, you know, a booking and touring thing that I think, if I'm, you know, helps keep MoonJune label alive, right?
I had a couple of very good albums.
Yeah.
One is probably my best-selling album of Alan Holsworth, Alan Pasqua, Chad Wackerman, and Jimmy Haslip. And also, I released that album and the band toured, and, you know, that was amazing. I never saw anything like that in my life. Before that, we had like 250 people in audience and 200 people buying CD from me, like, you know, because the album just, you know, it's amazing. And then also Soft Machine with Alan Holsworth, Floating World Live, and you know, of course, Soft Machine Legacy albums are doing well, and Stickman, because we licensed in Japan, and, you know, and we can get some money to produce albums, and, you know, we are little money, like, you know, but of course there are a lot of albums that didn't make any money, like, you know, and there is this Indonesian unbelievable artists, like especially band Ligro, which is tremendous, you know. Agam Hamza, it's one of the most innovative guitar players out there that nobody knows. But, you know, I can barely sell 300 CDs, you know, like, you know, and you know, but, you know, at the end, because I make very little money with label, but I make money with booking, you know. It's not, and I don't book so many MoonJune Records artists except Stickman, Soft Machine, and a couple of others, you know, because my booking is very different, because due to circumstances, I kind of specialized in what late John Heisman, a good friend of mine, said, like old farts, like, you know, legends of progressive rock and jazz rock, you know, from 60s and 70s, like, you know, and you know, like, you know, and then you go to this kind of one-off tours in Japan or South America, you do some decent money, and, you know, and then you support label, you know, and everything is under one roof, and fortunately, you know, without booking, I will be never able to do this, never.
But it's great that you've been able to do that. But, you know, also though, the label did reach a point where, like, the bigger acts were all kind of guys, no offense to anybody who's senior there, because I'm one too, but who were getting up there in age. But, you know, you have kind of, well, sorry, I'm going to time out here and go back, because one of the things I wanted to talk about was, you know, you began booking tours and things like that, but one of the things that has defined MoonJune is the number of musicians that you've drawn upon from different countries. I tried to count yesterday and I lost track at about 14 different countries from around the world.
Yeah, we are talking about main artists, like, you know, we are not talking about session guys, like, you know.
No, I'm talking about main artists.
Yeah, of course, because if we go with session artists, we have, like, my friend Antonio Sanchez, who's from Mexico, who is not on label, but, you know, he was on that session, and then we are going to over 30 countries, and
but 14 countries is a significant enough number. I mean, you know, and it seemed to start with Indonesia, right? With Simak Dialog, yeah. Yeah,
Simak Dialog was the first album in 2006, I'm sorry, and which didn't do well, but their later album did well, because they came twice to USA, they toured Japan, and they went to Germany and Holland and Malaysia, and, you know, and you know.
How did you hook up with them? How did that happen?
A long story, but I can tell in briefly. Like in 2000, I discovered, as a huge progressive rock fan, that there is still progressive rock in USA, because I was mostly kind of a jazz listener and avant-garde music listener in the 90s, and I thought that progressive rock is something from the past. Even though there were many progressive rock bands, but really not of my kind. Like, I respected those bands, like, you know, but, you know, even though, like, I like to listen to Marillion in Dream Theater, but this is not really what I listen. I saw those bands live, I like them, but, you know, I wasn't focused on that. My focus was mostly on jazz and avant-garde music, and, you know, living in New York City, seeing all these amazing musicians around the John Zone and all that thing. But then I discovered these festivals, like three, like Near Fest in Pennsylvania, Prog Fest in Los Angeles, and Prog Day in North Carolina. And then what is happening in 1999, I was still buying this kind of obscure psychedelic kind of albums from the 60s, early 70s from BTF, Vinyl Magic in Italy. And then the guy, Marco, who was working for that company, when I put my order, said, look, Leonardo, you have to listen to this album of amazing Indonesian band called Discus. They released the album in Indonesia, but they are also releasing this album on Mellow Records in Italy. I say, okay, put that in the together with that package and send to me. When I received, I was blown away how amazing the album is. And then as I'm curious guy, and I always wanted to go to Indonesia. I never been to Indonesia before, and now I've been so many times. I wrote like to 2 email addresses that I found in the booklet. Like one is Chico Hindarto, producer of album, and label guy who is my close friend now, and a main guy, guitar player Ivan Hassan. And they answered immediately. And then, I was very excited. Wow, I'm corresponding with somebody in Indonesia. When I go there, like I have somebody like, to hang out. But I was happy like 7-8 months later, Ivan Hassan tells me that the band Discus is coming to USA to perform in North Carolina at ProgFest and at event organized by Peter Tellen from Expose magazine. He's a big fan of Indonesian music. His wife is Indonesian, actually. And they're looking for a gig in New York City. But guy at the Indonesia embassy consulate here in New York City did know nothing. And I knew the guys at Knitting Factory, and I actually, okay, like I will book you the gig. That was before MoonJune. And of course, I went to North Carolina to the Progressive Rock Festival. I met the band. Then they came to New York, and they played that small room at Knitting Factory. Then I became friend with everybody, but especially with one guy, who was a sound guy of the band, and their close friend was Rizal Shah. He said, look, I have this band, maybe you should check, like it's my band, Simak Dialog. Then in 2003, before a Softworks tour in Japan, I spent 3.5 weeks in Southeast Asia. I had plenty of time in those days. I just sold my apartment, and my wife and my kid were in Brazil during the summertime. I just went to explore, and I came to Jakarta. Second person that I met was Rizal Shah. First one was the English expat who died, Terry, I forget his name, Terry something. And then we became friends. And he said, look, I'm recording this album, and we also have a live album that we just recorded. Would you like to be interested? And he gave me on CDR, but going to Japan with Softworks, coming back to New York, I kind of misplaced that CDR. And then next year I went to Indonesia again. He gave me again. I said, look, I have to release this. This is amazing. And that's Patahan. And see, like everything is kind of circumstantial. As I told you before, during my 115 releases, there is no such thing. Oh, send me a demo and let me know. Look, it doesn't work in that way. Every release on my album, like what Rod Stewart says, every picture tells a story. Every single release has a backstory. Everything is accidental, but it's a beautiful accident that happened to every single release. And I like, and I think I will continue in that way, because even those projects that I'm kind of putting together, there is a reason why those musicians are on that particular session, because either it's my interest, either I like guy personally. See, if you are, my thing is you have to be nice guy. You have to be my friend to join my club. And, I refuse, as you know, I will not mention names. I refuse to work with people that I could make money just because they have a difficult character. I never had any problem with anybody, but I say in my age, I don't want to deal with people. I can deal with some people. Look, I had a PhD, a master degree with Alan Holsworth in psychiatry, but he was Alan Holsworth, amazing guy. But that was something. But I just need to be with people that they understand that we are doing kind of think for ourselves. We are making the music, because I'm not in business of music. I'm in the music. See, the difference between me and other people are that I really do not care how many albums will sell. That's not primary reason why I'm releasing albums. My primary reason to release albums because I want those albums to be released, because it's for my personal pleasure and because for personal satisfactions of these musicians that they participated. Then if you can make money, that's fine. But look, as you know,
I was just going to. Sorry.
My artists, they don't make money with this kind of music. First of all, except Soap Machine and Stickman and Gary Husby and a couple of others. But mostly it's music that, okay, we have a job, we have to do something else, we make commercial music, but let's do this because that's what makes us feel good, and that's what makes me feel good. Like, that's my thing.
But that's one of the reasons also that I compare you with ECM, because you're like ECM, you don't have record contracts, right?
Oh, I look, when I'm booking, I have every single contract with every single promoter.
I'm talking about his label.
But I don't have, and I'm always paid except in very few rare situations that can be resolved. But with musicians that I'm booking, or with it's not just the only contract I had was with Softworks, because that was 2002, because I did know, and my friend Ken Kubernik, who introduced me to Alan Holsworth, who co-produced that album, Abracadabra, he said we have to have contract. But after that was just okay. Even when I was dealing with Phil Manzanera, Yaron Stavis, Yaron is his bass player for 15 years. He introduced me to Phil. Phil is one of my heroes, and let's go to Japan, and who needs the contract? We have a good time, and this is the money, and we share, and that's my spirit, and I think I'm okay with that, and
it seems to have worked for you. And it's also one of the reasons why I think I've said this many times that in the music world, like you're the musician's absolute best friend, because if they get you behind them, they can count on you to be behind them all 150%.
Because also that's my personality, because I don't know other way, and I can see, like, I started this when I was already like 41, 42. Now I'm 59 tomorrow, and I don't know other way, and I don't have time to learn music business and these kind of things. I really don't have time.
Yeah.
I was involved with another company until 6-7 years ago, when everything was done properly, because that was kind of a real kind of sort of music business. But in this thing in which we are, with all this kind of bastardization of music industry, with difficulties, and I say, look, instead of complaining, let's just do it, because if you complain too much, then just wasting your energy. Let's do something, because something will happen. You know why? Because always something happens. It just let's do it, and I don't.
How have you managed it though? I mean, MoonJune isn't on Spotify, is it?
Yes, because I don't care about digital distribution. I said to guys let's say Markus, okay, I will release your albums, you take care of digital distribution. I really don't care at all. What you do with your digital, like Mark Winfrey, everybody. I only have maybe 7-8 albums, because my friend Riza Shad unfortunately died, and I have Simak Dialog and a couple of other albums, but I really kind of, and they are there, I don't know. But I really don't want to deal with digital distribution with Spotify. That's for artists. If they can make some money, if they don't make, that's their problem. I'm not interested in Spotify. Actually, I like the Spotify as a resource. Like, it's a very good thing.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable kind of a platform. The only thing that there are other reasons that I like, which are virtually kind of not really related to Spotify, but to the society in which we live. Like, people are very easily to criticize Spotify and YouTube, forgetting that Spotify and YouTube are just a product of the society in which we live. But I don't want to deal with that, because I'm not, it really doesn't interest me. Like, I want to release albums on CD, occasionally on vinyl, and digital download. I require that you must have 24 bit period, or 20 bits. It's fine, 24, because there is always market for those guys who say, oh, let me download FLAC or Wave or kind of M4A Apple lossless kind of file, or not very compressed MP3 320, and because if you go to Amazon, it's 192 KB,
So Bandcamp really seems to be the best model for music distribution out there now, I think.
It's a sort of distribution, because you usually don't distribute, you just put there.
Yeah.
Because if you see, if you don't promote, nothing will happen, because I see a lot of people put music on Bandcamp, and there is no description of who is playing, what's about. And then you see those icons of potential buyers. You have known, or 1, 2, or 3, or 5. If you see some of my artists, there are hundreds,
Yeah.
because I promote, because I don't have my website where you can buy CDs. That's my website where you can buy CDs, because Bandcamp process, credit card transactions, and it's not Bandcamp that sells. People think that Bandcamp sells. Bandcamp doesn't sell anything. I sell.
Yeah, but you use them as a platform to do it.
That's a platform. The thing that Bandcamp pays fair, that they sell for you. No, it's not. Their platform, they say those are rules. If you are a smaller guy, less transaction, 15%. If you have more transaction, it's 10%. Then use it. And then if you know how to use it, you can sell. If you don't do nothing, then you cannot sell.
So if orders come through, actually, this is for me too, because I'm not totally sure how Bandcamp works. So if somebody buys a CD from MoonJune on Bandcamp, it basically just comes to you, and you've got to and you ship it out, right? It's like they literally are just a platform.
No, just platform. Bandcamp doesn't have inventory. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
Bandcamp is just platform. Everybody buys directly from me or from Markus, or from a couple of other guys that are here. Like, they just buy from me. I'm the guy who fulfill orders. I'm the guy, and Bandcamp pays normally between 12 to 24 hours.
Yeah.
Because they have still to process the transactions, and they process through the bank in Luxembourg. That's why transactions are coming during the night, which is like 9 o'clock in the Europe, and it's 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in AM in here. Like, and that's why they are paying you like at between 2 and 3 AM in USA, and like 9 o'clock in the morning. And they're just your processors, and it's just automatic kind of transactions. And Bandcamp doesn't sell anything. They didn't sell anything. They sold zero things. They are absolutely one of the best, if not the best platform. But you have to use it. And me and Markus, we are using that a lot. We are doing also this kind of free samplers, because I like database. Like, I like when I get email address, because when you put like sampler for free download, you have to leave me your email. That's and then I have my newsletters, and that's how we do it. And that's why it's a slow process, but in 10 years of Bandcamp, I developed like kind of very substantial mailing list.
How big is, just out of curiosity, if you don't mind, how big is your mailing list?
From a Bandcamp, about 8,000 people, but my MoonJune mailing list is like 23,000 people.
That's really good. That's like extraordinary.
Also, like that, I traveled a lot with Alan Holzer, Soft Machine, and Stickman, and I have sheet like next to my on my match table, say people leave the email address. Of course, 30% of email address nobody can read, because it's just written in. You have to figure out what it is. But I collect emails, like and I put them in database, and and look, I have like 11,000 people that unsubscribe from me. 23,000 people are active. Especially with Alan Holzer.
You have 23,000 subscriptions, like the one I yesterday.
On my MoonJune, but there are 11,000 people extra that they unsubscribe, because people say, oh, probably they are receiving my messages through Bandcamp, or simply they don't want to. They are receiving too many.
Yeah.
Or probably like music that Markus Reuter, Mark Winfield, and Asaf Sirkis and Yaron Stavi, the Stonehouse, probably. It's not for them. Say, oh, this is MoonJune. The music is too difficult. Like they unsubscribe. I understand that, and but it's just But when I worked with Alan Holzer, even though like I rarely traveled with him in Europe, I had an agent who was actually opening act and tour manager, and he was he's American guy, but he was very German. Like he was those emails, and and because this is the thing, like guys, you like Alan Holzer, you have to give me email. I need that. I still believe in newsletters.
Yeah, I'm with you. Maybe you could talk a little bit about Alan, since I think you were kind of responsible for reviving some of the interest in him, because you got him back on the road touring, and because he hadn't been touring for quite a while, right?
Yeah, he wasn't touring, especially in the USA. And I will tell you something else which is related to Alan, which applies to Frank Gabale and Scott Henderson. All these three phenomenal musicians came to me because Alan didn't came to me in exactly that way, but Scott and Frank Gabale specifically, they came to me because they were trying to be booked by agencies in USA, and they didn't succeed because look, these agencies that have offices like they pay rent like $10,000-$15,000 a month. They have lawyers and receptionists. They don't want the bands that are making $2,000-$4,000 a gig. They don't want. And that's the reason that I got Alan, because I knew Alan because of Softworks. Then we reconnected like a few years later, and I knew Ron Sturm, owner of Iridium, for 20 plus years, even before MoonJune. Like I knew his father and his brother, and he said, "Look, Leonardo, do you have that Softworks soft machine thing?" I said, "No, doesn't exist anymore. Get me Alan Holsworth. I will give him 4 nights. He didn't play in New York in a long time. I can do better than BB King." So okay, fine. I asked Alan, say, "Oh, of course I will go." And I said, "And what about other gigs?" And I said, "Alan, can I, in your name, can I call, because I knew a lot of agency, can I call agency and ask you, like, if they can book you?" "Of course." And I called everybody. I called like so many, and people say, "Wow, Alan Holsworth. I used to book UK in 1979. Oh, I know him since the Tony Williams. Oh, I used to do IOU tour. I'm sorry, like, at this moment we are full, and all other." And then after running through 10, 12 agencies, I said to Alan, "Look, I don't have any gig for you. Like, nobody wants to book you." But then Steve Feigebaum from Cuneiform introduced me to a guy from Alexandria, Virginia, Michael Yavorek from Birchmere. Then Ron Sturm introduced me to a couple of other guys, and those guys introduced me to other guys. In a matter of 1 week, I got 4 weeks tour for Alan with Jimmy Johnson and a guy, which means that we are going back to Elton Dean kind of scenario.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, we became friends, me and Alan, and he asked me for help, and I helped him, and by default, actually, I became his agent in USA, in Japan, for other reasons. But then in Europe, he had this guy from Italy, Patrizio Chiozza, who was booking him for 17 consecutive years. But he was, I know Patrizio, he's a good guy, but he was typical agent, like, okay, today you are playing in Madrid and tomorrow in London, but the gig in Madrid is 10 p.m. and flight to London is like 7 a.m. because Charles Wackerman has to do clinic at 3 p.m. Just example. And then you are going to Warsaw, to Lisbon, to Novosibirsk, to Patagonia, and Alan and Alan Pasqua and Alan were touring Europe with Chad and Jimmy Haslip, and Pasqua called me from Berlin, and he said, "Look, I know, Leonardo, I know that you know that guy, American guy who lives in Germany that is doing stop machine. I really do not want to tour in this way. This is ridiculous." Say everybody that has a common sense knows that traveling from Berlin to Paris, it's not for people of our age. That's like 13, 14 years ago. And I say, "Okay, I will hook you up with Jeff Haug and from Maximum Booking." So then de facto I became Alan's world representative, booking directly or using this kind of regional kind of agents or sub-agents to book his gigs. And I said to Jeff, "Look, there is one rule. There are no travels more than 3 hours. Maybe once in a blue moon, we can, they can travel 4 or 5 hours, only if it's a good gig. But, if it's more than 3 hours, day off."
Yeah.
Jeff Haug, he put like 5 weeks tour with Chad Wackerman and Jimmy Haslip, Jimmy Johnson. Alan loved it because they, it was only one kind of trip of 3 hours. Everything else was 1 hour, 1.5, 2 hours, and that's how you make happy people.
Yeah.
And that's how I started working with Alan. And then they bootlegged that recording that Alan Pasqua actually coming from Berlin. They recorded at Quasimodo Jazz Club for Radio Berlin, and somebody was putting as a booklet. Then a guy, I don't want to mention his name, his notorious fusion kind of mail order company, he was offering that bootleg. If you buy like 3 Japanese reissues on those kind of mini LP sleeves of Alan Holsworth, you can get that for free. And Alan Pasqua simply freaked. Alan, Italian American from Hoboken, that guy, my buddy, but he just like that. And he said, "Leonardo, we have to do something." He said, "Look, I will release your album. This is another scenario. I will release your album. I will help you, and then the band will tour again." And we went to Japan and did the USA tour. And look, this is how I developed my relation with people. Same thing with Tony. Like, I know Tony's since 2005. And then we reconnected in Japan in 2008 for that improv band with Terry Bozio, Pat Mastelotto, and Tony, and they invited Alan. And then Tony said, look, then I booked that band in the USA. Then he liked what I was doing. And he said, look, we are this big agency, but they have big acts. They have King Crimson, And actually, I was doing some of bookings for Stickman, even before Markus, because their agent from Los Angeles was asking me. I said, oh, I have this guy like from Argentina. Do you know anybody in Brazil? I said, yeah, I know, and I was sending him this kind of small venues where Alan Holsworth used to play, because they don't know small venues. They don't know the guys that have like 200 people in a room, like, for 200 or 300 people. They don't know certain guys, and they're kind of agency. And that's how Stickman came to me, same as Frank Gabale and Scott Anderson. Scott and Frank, they called every single agency and no booking opportunity. Then I did it. And then Alan, that's how I established my relationship with Alan. I made him happy, and I learned about Alan, especially from Jimmy Johnson, who is one of the greatest human beings I ever met in my life. He's, first of all, one of my all-time favorite bass players, but he's a beautiful human being, and he knew Alan very, very well. And he told me, I will not go into details, but he really taught me how to deal with this kind of very extremely complex human being who is a genius, but had some issues. There were.
Softworks Abracadabra had its challenges, right? Because it was a great live recording, which you finally released last year, right. and you can hear the difference between what was there and what ended up on the original album, and that was unfortunately, Alan's pathological perfectionism kind of sucked a bit of the life out of the record, as good as it is.
Yeah, but Alan's pathological perfection is not due to the perfection. It's due to his profound insecurity.
Yeah,
that's why his albums in 20 years, and even though he had 90 compositions, that of course he overdubbed like maybe 1 million solos, but he never finished. He never did any album since
16 Minutes Ain't Well and Flat Tire.
Yeah, but he had 90 plus compositions, and because he was afraid of judgment, of and he was extremely insecure person, and
I remember I was with you backstage when he played at Spectrum in Montreal at the Jazz Festival 2005, I think, with Jimmy and Chad, and he, like, the band came off from a set, and it was like, for those who don't know, the Spectrum was like one of the great Montreal clubs, seated about 1,000, close to 1,000 people. So it was huge, and it was a major venue for the Montreal Jazz Festival until it had to get torn down in 2007, I think. Anyway, so I was at that show, and we were backstage, and the band comes off, and the crowd's going totally crazy, screaming for more. And, I don't know who it was who said, like, Alan, I think, you better get back out there. And he said, you really think so? And it was like, but that for me was like the first revelation of, the kind of, they're screaming, the roof is going off the place, and he's like, not that sure, So.
I have of course, other people knew also Alan, but in last 20 years or last 15 years of his life, me and a couple of other people knew him better than anybody else. I'm good friend with Bill Milkovsky. He's tempted to write a book about Alan, which can be very big, too many details. And he said, look, Dini, if I write something about that, you have a lot of things to say, like, look, Alan was a unique person. We had the mutual love and respect. He wasn't a very easy person with himself. But I always accepted him as a human being, because, see, I'm not a guitar player. Like, when he was in a company with me, like we were talking about life and some obscure British jazz musicians that in a fusion world nobody knew about that. Who knows Ron Matheson and Henry Lauter? And we were talking about Henry Lauter and Ray Worley and many other things, and wines. And also, I'm not a guitar player, because I will not talk to him about intervallic permutations and about pedals and this and that. I will not tell him, oh, Alan, you are my God because you. No, I was just with him like younger brother. Like, you know, that was the thing. And you know how many times I was at the bar with him. You know, I'm not heavy drinker. I like to drink socially but I was with him just to give him company until 2-3 o'clock in the morning very often. You know, and we developed very strong relationship that unfortunately few envious and jealous and mean people ruined a little bit before he died in the last 1 year. But that's another subject that I will reveal in my book.
Yeah, I don't want to go there because it was an unfortunate. It was just an unfortunate thing that happened. I mean, I was there watching it unfold, and I was kind of.
It's experience. It's another thing to put in my book. Like, you know, it's my life is surprises and experiences.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a book of stories from you would have to be a multi-volume set, I think, you know, because you've got so many. I mean, every album's a story. Every tour probably is got a lot of stories. But I thought, well, it's important to talk about, you know, your international connections. You know, I mean, you know, Systematic Dialogue was the first MoonJune album to go beyond the United States, I think, or the UK or Italy. But, you know, then you started bringing people on. You started meeting people like, you know, guitarist Dua Bujana and Dwicky Darmohan, who's put out like a couple of the most amazing records you've got on the label. And I think it's worth talking a bit about, you know, your you know, how you've managed to bring in, you know, musicians from, you know, Indonesia, Spain, Serbia, you know, I mean, like just from so many places. How have you managed to make those connections? Is it just organic? Is it what's the deal?
Organic, because see, like I'm that kind of person. See, like I was born in Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia. I was born in today's Bosnia and Herzegovina by accident. Nobody from my family is actually from Bosnia, but I was born in Bosnia, and I was on very mixed, ethnic background, like Montenegrin, Croatian, Armenian, Lebanese, and a little bit Italian. And then I lived in Italy, and I never, because of the complexity of Yugoslavia and the fact that I was very much related to Italy, I never was attached to my roots. Like I really don't consider myself to be part of any ethnicity, any specific ethnic group or religion, nothing. I'm just myself, because I had my life as a child was full of rejections, and I always wanted to go to the world, because when I was a kid, I was looking to the mountain and from my window, and I asked my grandfather, Grandpa, what's another part of that? What is besides that mountain? He said, like, it's a world. I say, Grandpa, one day I would like to go to the world. And it was just my internal kind of need to discover things in life and in environment full of rejection. And considering that I'm extremely, as you know me well, positive and optimistic person. And I simply like the world, like, the planet Earth is my country. And of course the moon, I'm joking, but connecting with people, like, from different countries, just coincidence, like, just because I discovered this Indonesian band Discuss, and I met this sound guy whom I met then in Indonesia, and then he introduced me to other guys, and his guitar player Tokpati and Deva Bujan and Dwicky Darmohan, and then it's just this. Let's see, like, because when I discover things in my life, I don't go for very exactly same thing specific. I'm a little bit all over the place, and it's just accidental, It, of course, like, I released those musicians not because they're from Indonesia, because they are good and they became my friends.
Yeah.
But now I went to South Africa, I discovered like the most amazing jazz and avant jazz and the fusion scene. Probably is unbelievable. I just bought like about 70 albums of South African artists released in the last 10 years. Unbelievable. Yeah. And I know I will go back. I know that something will happen. I don't know what happened. Maybe nothing will happen. But now, see, it's just circumstantial. I always wanted to go to South Africa. Finally, I went with Dwicky Darmohan. His guest on sax was this phenomenal sax player, Sisonke Chonti, a young guy in his early 30s. And I said, then I heard other things, say, wow, this is something that interests me. It's essential because I went there. Like, you know, I don't go to the map of the world and say, oh, let me go to Mongolia. No, it's just happening. Like my friend Vlado Boronko, who is Russian, he's here on Zoom, who is friend, I know him through Markus Reuter. You know, he has some projects in Tuva, in Buryatia, in southern Siberia, you know, and he told me about several things. And I say, wow, I'm interested. Because it's circumstantial that I met him, that we became friends. He told me about something that interests me. That's how I come to the projects. I'm not coming projects so, oh, I have to do this because it's fancy, or it's it's part of the trend, or because everybody goes there. You know, I really don't know. I even don't know where I'm going the next. Like, you know, I like improvisation. You know, there is something that leads me to things, and you know, and I'm just saying, okay, let it be, and something will happen, because as I said, always something happens. You know?
Yeah. But you know, you talk about, I mean, you know, the early days of MoonJune were like sort of a mix of progressive rock and jazz / improvised stuff that was still, for the most part, in some kind of rock context. But there was, I've said this, but and I think Markus agrees with me. We talked about this the other day, that there was kind of a paradigm shift for MoonJune around 2016. Markus mentioned for him it was the Stickman tour with David Cross that resulted in Midori. But for me, and this is something we should really talk about a lot, I think, is it was La Casa Morada in Catalonia, and a roughly two week series of sessions that yielded 4 albums instead of 3, and you know, really represented a real paradigm shift for MoonJune. For me, it was when you started putting out music that completely lost me in terms of categorization. I'm thinking specifically of the Stonehouse, which was, well, effectively Mark Wingfield's trio with the South. Hi, Asaf, nice to see you. And Yaron Stavi, hello, Yaron, also. And Markus. But you can tell the story better than I can, but you know, originally it was meant to be the album that became Lighthouse, which was Markus and Asaf. But Yaron arrived a day early, and then you can take it from there.
It's very interesting, actually. The album that changed everything in my entire life, it's a podcast ever on Vicky Dharmavan, which is kind of precursor of La Casa Morada in certain sense, and I will tell you why. You know, I finally was able to release the album of Vicky Dharmavan with Chad Wackerman, Jimmy Aslip, and a couple of on the one track Jerry Goodman. But then Vicky was more interested in this kind of different kind of things that he was already doing, and then he's supposed to go to London to play with very famous Indonesian singer. She is now almost 90 years old. She's the biggest diva in Indonesian music, for a very big event organized by Indonesian British Chambers of Commerce and the Indonesian Embassy. And then Vicky said, oh, Mas Leo, like Mas means brother in Indonesia, Mas Leo, let's go. Like, you know, I would like to do some session in London, like invent something. Yeah. And I always liked Vicky's kind of microtonal mini moog playing. And I say, wow, what about power trio? You just play mini moog, like, you know, like no one else in the world, because this guy is really ridiculous on mini moog. And then I say, okay, I will ask my friend Gary Husband, not, you know, and then I will see if Pino Palladino is available. Then I go like on website accidentally only next day, say, oh, Pino is with The Who and Gary is with Billy Cobham. I say, oh, it's not happening. Yeah. And then I said, Vicky, can we go like back to the old idea of us to do this kind of ethnic kind of, see, Vicky is from Bandung, not from Jakarta. That's a capital of old kingdom Sunda. They're very different from Javanese. They have different kind of ethnicity and different music. And also the original gamelan is from Sunda. And they are kind of descendants of Hindus that they invaded like Indonesian archipelago like more than 1,000 years ago before Arabs. And I said, why we don't explore this kind of amazing kind of music from Bandung, from Sunda, with kind of this kind of ECM-ish kind of world fusion kind of thing, And he said, yes, I'm in it. And then, meanwhile, I became very big fan. Actually, I knew him for many years, Gilad Atzmon, and his amazing band that Yaron Asa played, and of course Nicolas Meyer, and Asaf was with Nicolas Meyer, and Gilad was with Nicolas Meyer. I said, look, Vicky, probably you don't know these musicians. Maybe you know Nicolas Meyer because he played with Jeff Beck for 6 years, but you don't know this musician, but they're exactly right for your music. Yaron, Asaf, Gilad Atzmon, and Nicolas Meyer. I say, look, and you have to use a friend of mine who is an amazing guitar player. He will mix and master your album, and he can play on one tune, which is Mark Winfield. Yeah. And then we arrived in London, and Yaron can remember, I think Asaf wasn't there. He was recording album with Tim Garland. And we went to Indonesian embassy, and Vicky met finally for a big party with this diva, and with Mark Winfield, Gilad, and Yaron and their wives. And then immediately everybody was in good mood. It was already kind of good kind of spirit. The next day when we came to the studio, Asaf appeared, because he was already in that same studio doing album with Tim Garland, and atmosphere was great. And why this album is very important? First of all, I was betting on Vicky Darmawan. In my opinion, Vicky is one of the greatest pianists for my taste. There are other great, but there is something special. And he only showed like 10% of he can do. And he's not young anymore. He's in mid-50s, late 50s, almost my age. But, I think he deserves to be known. And secondly, this is the first time when a musician gave me absolute and total freedom to choose musicians. Because before, I was saying few things here and there, like, especially with Soft Machine Legacy guys, that they actually dedicated a couple of tunes to me, like Steam, like, that's kind of, because I'm like Locomotive Steam, and and other things. But that's the first time when I was able to say, okay, let's do something that I like, but I know you will like because we are on the same page. That's how Casa Murada actually started, because this guy that I discovered, Dusan Jeftovic, amazing Serbian guitar player, he's a very well-known session player, and he recorded so many albums in this amazing studio, which is inside of 11th century kind of farm mansion that belongs to the same family since the 14th century. If you go to one of the rooms, there is like, that you can, Jesus Rovira, owner and sound engineer of the place, the studio, he's very well-known local bass player. You can see this kind of genealogical tree when you can go like to like 1300 something, and just that, like, being able to be in place that has such a rich history and a beautiful place in the middle of countryside, it gives you kind of certain kind of inspiration, And then before jumping again to the wiki for the next year, like, in 2017, 2016, Dusan wanted to reconnect with Asaf. They didn't know each other, but Dusan said, I like that guy, hook me up. I hooked them up, and they said, I will ask my friend Basil Hajimanov from Belgrade to come to record album. And that's it. We had one album. Okay. Then Mark Winfield said, oh, I have to do another album of my trio after the Proof of Light. Yeah. There's a studio, like, I don't know where, like, it costs such and such money. Said, Mark, why you don't come to Spain? Like, Asaf is already there, and we can fly Yaron. And Mark looked at the studio online and said, wow, of course. And then, in meanwhile, Markus Reuter hooked up with both Mark Winfield and Asaf because, I like those guys because they're amazing musicians. I would like to play with them, and vice versa. And I said, Markus, you come down. And okay, then I set up like 2 days recording with Markus, Mark, and Asaf, 2 days recording of Mark, Asaf, and Yaron, and 2 days recording of Dusan with Asaf and Vasil. Yeah. And, Asaf was working all the time. But then Yaron Stavi, who is, musical brother of Asaf Sirkis, they played over 1,500 gigs together. Yeah. He came one day before, but very late. He stayed with a friend of ours, bass player in Barcelona. He came next day around 11 o'clock, they already kind of improvised for 1 hour. And Yaron is, of course, amazing human being, always funny guy, like, hey, Yaron, like typical things. Hey, how's everything? How it was yesterday with Bernard? You went to eat this and that. Oh, you brought some wine. Amazing, And then we were just talking like this. And then I said to Yaron, I think I was the first one to say, Yaron, your bass is here. That's the studio. And you have 3 guys. Just do something. And that's why I released that album first, because we didn't plan that album. And I call it the Stone House, which means La Casa Morada, instead of Lighthouse first. Because it has some magic, because look, maybe 5 minutes before Yaron's arrival, or 5 minutes before I told him this, we never ever thought that they will record that album. And that's one of the beauties of the life, and that's what I like. And then when I went to Indonesia a few months later, I said to Vicky, he traveled to over 80 countries. He played in 70 plus countries around the world, and then he said, oh, Masleo, I love that place. I have to go there, hook me up. And of course, he wanted to play with Yaron and Asa, because they recorded Pasa Clever. Says, oh, but we need a guitar player, but I would like to call this guy, because I'm a huge fan of his. He's one of my all-time favorite guitar players, Nguyen Lee. And I was in Paris. I went to Nguyen's house, and he was very happy. He knew me, from other people, and friend with Gary Husband, and then he said, of course, I'm coming down. And then I asked local legend, Carles Benavent, who is one of my, I cannot even describe how much I love Carles Benavent. And I became immediately good friend with this beautiful human being, Carles, and I invited him to session, and we did this session, which was recorded for 2 days. Only one long improvisation, but tunes were composed by Vicky. Then Markus came to do something else. And Vicky is a natural improviser. Say, look, Vicky, you have to go to studio and record with Markus and Asaf, and my friend Boris Savoldelli will come from Italy. You guys do whatever you want. And that's Harikatiga, and this is kind of to close the story with Dwicky, because Dwicky is kind of like me. I never met in my life anybody like Dwicky, because he's very volcanic kind of person. He's always ready to do things, and whatever I tell, like there's a kind of a telepathic communication. Same thing that I have with Markus on another level. I have with Vicky. I have also with other musicians, and that's what puts us together. And and that's why those albums are great. And we did 4 years, and last year, unfortunately, we canceled twice. This year I might do it in September. Very small one, only with Markus Reuter and Gary Husband, and maybe with one other musician. Need to record Gary Husband's solo album that and the follow-up of that album, Music for Our Times, of Markus and Gary. And I hope that I can see this another thing. Now I'm after another musician that I love, that I don't know. He knows me. He knows me by stories, because we have mutual friends, but he's one of my favorite musicians. And when I mentioned that to Gary, he said, I love Dafer Youssef. And I said, yes, I'm going after Dafer Youssef. Doesn't matter what, but I have to have him, because first of all, I know that he's a wonderful guy, because you see he's always smiling, and also he's unbelievable musician. And I think, that something will happen. If happens, it will happen. If it does happen, good. But this is my intention.
Yeah, I met Dafar through my Norwegian connections, because he did those albums that Avon Arset produced. He did a couple of albums that Avon produced and stuff. And
we talked many times. How big of Avon Arset. That they, it's Husni Selendrici, the Turkish clarinet player. See, those are the guys that I like all kind of music, but I like this kind of music that goes to kind of esoteric, kind of mystique. And also I'm very happy that Gary Husband, he was always like that, but he never had a chance to do it, to be esoteric and mystic in piano. And he's an unbelievable piano player.
He's phenomenal piano. He's great. He's as good a keyboard as he is a drummer, maybe even better.
I know, but I believe that he's an amazing keyboard player and drummer, but piano.
Yeah.
I think that's his forte that nobody knows. And
his solo, his solo record, like his solo albums doing Alan Holdsworth and John McLaughlin are brilliant.
And unfortunately, that project that we had, we want, Gary was doing with Chick Corea never didn't happen, and but Chick was a huge fan of Gary, and and they were working kind of quietly, silently. Sometimes they were posting something on social media, but they were working on interesting project, and and unfortunately, Chick passed away, and
Yeah. Another guy we should talk about, though, and I'll make his ears burn here, though, is we really should talk about Markus as well, because not only has he become, a big part of the MoonJune story, but he's actually recorded more MoonJune albums than anybody else, right?
16
albums. So you met Markus through Stickman, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I met Markus probably at Iridium, but he contacted me I think in 2014 maybe. He said, "Oh, Leonardo, Tony, I think he got my email from Tony or something, and he said, I'm a big fan of Alan Holdsworth. I would like to kind of either collaborate with him or I think he mentioned something to mix or master something, I don't remember. But then we kind of connected. And then when I saw him, I saw Stickman before. It was a very good band. But when Markus came, it was another band. And what I think, look, I saw Stickman, I even don't know how many times, it's ridiculous, 150 times, something like that. But, it's like a spaceship, it's going like this. And every time is better and better. And really, not because he's my friend, but he's an unbelievable musician, because he plays exactly what is close to my soul. I see, all musicians that I like from completely different kind of genre of music. Can be Ralph Towner, or can be Markus Reuter, or can be anybody. But it's music that I feel inside. And what Markus does, it's very close to who am I. And I connected, and of course Tony and Pat, and I saw that band growing, and playing, touring with them all around the world, and seeing this kind of special collaboration with David Cross, Mel Collins, and lately with Gary Husband. It's just amazing. And I suggested to Markus, I said, look, you are a guitar player. Touch guitar, it's kind of it's a guitar, but a lot of people don't consider touch guitar as a guitar. So you have to do power trio album. And we did it, Truth, which is 100th release of MoonJune, because it's a sort of power trio, and he really can play, because he's a mofo soloist, Because, Stickman always finished with a couple of tunes, and last tune was a tune called Open, which kind of started as an improvised tune, but they adopted this tune to be kind of sort of in certain kind of form and shape, but there is a plenty of improvisation in the middle, and that's where entire band has kind of collective sound for 2 hours. Then at the Open, there is this guy like Markus. He's just blowing his touch guitar for something between 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the inspiration. And I say, wow, that's the most insane guitar playing that I ever heard. In that context, because it's not just that his guitar playing, it's the context of having Pat Massarotti with electronic and acoustic drums, and Tony doing what he does with stick. And in that kind of context, that's, in my opinion, I know a lot of music, but there is a lot of music that I never heard also, but I never heard anything like this. Because, there are 6 people in a power trio on Stickman when they played Open. And after finishing level 5, which is kind of 3 guys are playing what 8 people in King Crimson are doing, which is ridiculous.
Well, but the thing is, but Markus, maybe I can ask Markus a question, is how do you balance out, I mean, you've been putting out some of your records through MoonJune, and then you have others that come out through Yapit, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Yapitus. So how do you decide what's going where?
It's actually Leonardo. If Leonardo is involved, and Leonardo is sort of like the creative spark that leads to the project, then it's a MoonJune project. It's very much like that. And I think that's also why we should not underestimate Leonardo's influence as a producer, even though he's not a technical producer, but an emotional and a motivational producer. And really, like as he says, like the music that, and this is funny because he says, I'm not a musician. And he said that a couple times in this interview already, but I think he is. I think he really is a musician who doesn't play an instrument, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe you can give a couple of examples about how, how he's driven the music to, say, go somewhere maybe that you didn't expect.
Yes, I mean, first of all, it's his choice of atmosphere, let's say. Like, so the people he invites, the place that he chooses where to record, and then it's just his presence. And, like his love for music and love for having a peaceful but energetic time, sort of like opens all the doors for, just total freedom musically. And that's kind of like the first thing. And then during the actual recording sessions, like, as you know, like in most professional studios, you have the control room, you have the recording rooms, and you have glass, right? So you can see each other. And Leonardo is there present. Like sometimes when he has a lot of jet lag, he may fall asleep, but but most of the time he's there, he's super present. And you can see that, like, you can see his, like, when something special happens, he sort of like reacts to it. You can see it in his physique, and he starts kind of like moving. And sort of like also somehow I remember with Dwiki Harikatiga, for example, like at some point I think we were about to stop an improvisation, and he just made like one sign or something, and we continued for another 45 minutes. So he sort of like also has some sort of sense for, okay, something is happening, so do not stop, keep going, and that really is absolutely wonderful.
And also one of the things that you guys do, it's not that uncommon now. I mean, ECM has done it for some time as well, but is the idea of taking like really long improvisations and in post-production finding segments that seem to stand alone. And I think that's how Lighthouse kind of happened in a way, right? That came from like one long improvisation. Am I right?
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that there's much less editing involved than you would think. So it's usually like you maybe like cut off the first minute or something like that, right? Okay. So for example, with the Truth album is also fully improvised, but we kind of like decided on a bass riff, and because we decided on the bass riff, I knew what the drone was, right? And so. But other than that, like things were improvised, and so then like the editing process basically cut the first minute off. So that like and with I don't remember exactly, maybe Mark Wingfield remembers, but there is with Lighthouse and Stonehouse, like in really 95% of the cases, the pieces are just presented as they were played, and actually most of the times even in the order they were improvised in.
Wow. That's impressive. I didn't know that.
I can add something, and also like don't forget that Shape Shifters album with Tim Ozer and Kenny Grochowski.
Yes.
A live album, but we kept every single second. And also Alex temporarily left. He will be back, but Alex Kolnick. But we did live at same place with Kenny Grochowski, Percy Jones, and Tim Ozer, and Markus did mixing and mastering. And hi, Alex. And probably we cut maybe 1 minute. I mean, like 10 seconds here, 15 seconds here, and but virtually we kept the whole thing because like Percy Jones was a little bit skeptical because he's a very nice and very humble guy. Oh, I didn't play well. Come on, Percy, you played well. And because the thing like to keep to preserve the essence of that moment. Of course, with Alex, Percy, Tim, and Kenny. That was a live concert. I was the only guy in audience, was streaming, but it was like being in studio because it's not so different than what Markus, Mark, Yaron, and Asaf did. It's just a different scenario, but it's literally the same thing. And if either we will keep the same order of tracks, but sometimes because of certain dynamics, you just want to switch a little bit, not too much. Yeah. But it's important to maintain that because otherwise, like it's an Eagles, live album. Like it's not you know.
Yeah. Whoops, no vote. But at the same time, though, I mean, there are certain things that you know, you're doing them in a live context and you're going, this is great. But then when you listen back to it, you go, okay, maybe that part there wasn't exactly so great, or maybe you should do some things to because there's a difference. I mean, you know, a live performance is generally something that happens and then it's over, you know.
John, I think that's exactly what Leonardo kind of like creates, this situation or the feel in the studio is just as if you were playing live. And
yeah.
and then what happens is, and I think this is a big part of, interestingly enough, this is where Leonardo and we also kind of have the same opinion. It's like the musicians that are part of the family do not improvise in the traditional jazz sense, where you kind of like work within a structure and you can go anywhere within that structure. And but we actually improvise the structure. So we improvise the form as well as the content. And that, I think, like generally, it's something that people have started doing in the past 25 years. Yes. And it's sort of like, that is really the evolution of jazz, I find, is that people do now have a sense, how do I improvise a beginning, a middle, and an end? Yeah. And that's what Leo loves.
What Gary Peacock called it, it's like the idea of spontaneous composition.
Yes, exactly.
You know, so.
You know, with myself and my friends who are musicians, it's more than that. It's see, like, we live in society when we don't know how to communicate with other people, and this is kind of philosophical approach to learn and to be able to communicate with other people through the music. And we are in the same room. I'm there, like, you know, with a sound guy, and they are improvising. Actually, they are not just improvising; they are communicating with each other. It's a conversation, and it's not just, you know, like, you know, or let's blow our instrument and let's see what. No, like, you know, that's why I will mention again, like Alex, Percy, Tim, and Kenny Grohovsky. Like, it was exactly the same thing. Like, you know, they were in a situation when they are in a room and they are just have big ears. They are listening each other, and this is not just because of music, because these guys in real life are also big listeners. Like, you know, and this what that's why that we are friends. See, like, I have a lot of friends, but I tend to be friend with people that are like that, because if you are able to listen in real life and you are a musician, you're able to listen to other musicians, regardless if you are improvising the music or you are playing by charts and compose music, you have to also be listening. Like, I remember Nguyen Lee, like, he had the charts that Vicky wrote, very complex music, but then he improvised because he was just feeling what Yaron Stabio on upright bass, Carlos Benevento on bass guitar was doing with Asaf and Vicky on piano, and that's how he reacted. Because in other circumstances, you have these musicians that in real life, they are not able to listen to other people, and they apply that also to recording sessions and say, oh, stop, don't play on top of my thing, like, you know. So, no, in all situations that I was involved, nobody said anything to others.
Nobody's stepping on toes because they're all listening.
Because also, look, you know, maybe I am able to put people together that I believe, that I feel they combine with each other, not necessarily musically, as a humans, because you can be very different from each other, but if you are able to accept others, you listen to others, then if you are a masterful musician, it's very easy to these musicians to play in that way. Yeah. I think it's interconnected, and to have fun. That's the most important thing, to have fun.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's what. I'll leave that. One of the things I was going to ask, I was going to make a comment, but I'll leave it for now. One of the things I was wondering too is with La Casa Morada, because I haven't been there. Is it like everybody in a single room, or do you have to divide, you know, people out? Do you have to put the drummer in a booth, but there's still like visual contact? How does it look like?
You only put Asaf in the cage, and everybody else is free. No, because
I like the cage.
Yeah.
You're in the cage. Okay, no, but no, I mean for separation, sure, no, but I mean I just was wondering, but everybody else is in the room in one room, and Asaf has obviously got visual.
But we made one mistake with Hari Kartiga because we were very excited because first 2 days, they recorded like a lot of composed music, and then we were very excited. We went in the evening to a very nice restaurant. We were in so good mood. The next day we forget to fix microphones, and that's why during the recording, there is no separation between acoustic piano and other instruments because we didn't think about that. But that's part of also beauty because it's not perfect. Because if it's perfect, it will be not funny. But we try to do our best. But also, it's very important that musicians be in the same room. Even Asaf was in slightly in a booth, but
there's visual contact still, of course, like through glass. But the other thing about separation, I mean, I've always, I have spent some time in studios, not to the degree of you guys, but separation isn't the be all. I mean, sometimes a little bit of leakage isn't a bad thing. In terms of the ultimate overall sound, it can create something a little bit fatter, if there's a bit of leakage. I mean, it makes it difficult if you want to go in and fix things, but it doesn't sound like you guys go in and do much fixing. So, doesn't matter.
Actually, our idea is because Mark and Markus are tech guys, not only amazing musicians but also amazing engineers. But they're always trying to keep as closest to the original. Of course, sometimes you have to, I ask Mark Wingfield to fix, I still didn't release that album. It's from a second tour of Stimag Dialog in USA. We had the most amazingly played the Fender Rhodes, but it was something that was coming because there was like one piece Fender Rhodes with a embedded speaker cabinet was doing noise, but Mark was able to fix that noise. These kind of things we might fix, or Markus or Mark, other engineers, because to fix little kind of noise imperfections, but to fix music, do overdubs, not really.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things, and that's kind of like what really MoonJune in the last 2 years especially has really come out. I think one of the things that's defined it is that it's really become much more about improvisation than it ever has. And
but I'm continuing to do kind of see, look, I reach to so many people. Like when I promote albums, I reach to jazz guys, fusion guys, avant guys, classic rock guys, and progressive rock guys. And very often, I get to the to the people that they cannot listen to certain kind of things. They're too much jazz. Oh, that's Then you go to this kind of narrow-minded progressive guys that are only listening 80s prog and after that, and then some classic, and said, there is another album from MoonJune. It's just noise, it's. But I like to take chance because we are not making albums to please other people. We are making albums to please ourselves in the first place, and it's normal that we get bad reviews. Let's say this album Hari Kartiga, Vicky Dharma, that you love. There are tons of people say, wow, this is something very unusual. There is nothing like this ever recorded. And then you have guys like that gave me 1 out of 10 stars because this is the worst album I ever heard in my life. Because the guy who I remember when I launched Delta Saxophone Quartet playing music of Soap Machine, and then one guy reviewer in Russia, he said, I cannot review this album. How these guys can play? There is no drummer and there is no bass player,
Yeah, that's just people with preconceptions. Yeah, I understand.
I accept that. I'm just laughing, right? Because I actually accept that. There is nothing wrong with bad reviews, and there is nothing wrong with great reviews. But you have to go there because see, in that way, you can discover, that people that are not necessarily known for certain kind of music, they might also appreciate. I can kind of gamble, and very often I'm right because you see the guys that they are very unfortunately Royal Stokes just died, a legendary jazz guy, 91 years old. He was a huge fan of MoonJune, especially with Indonesian artists. He went to Indonesia in 50s, in 60s, Bitnik, and he wrote, he interviewed one Indonesian artist, and he was, this is the guy that wrote about ragtime and and Louis Armstrong, and then he was the guy who was enjoying like the Stonehouse and Lighthouse, and then if I say people, oh, I was sending my promos to Royal Stock, say, why you're sending, he's an old guy who is who is writing about ragtime. No, look, you never know. I like this kind of gambles, and it's great, and he said, wow, thank you very much for introducing me to such amazing music at his age, which is
but that's also encouraging, as some of us, myself included, are getting older. One of the things that I keep hoping for is that I don't lose my passion for the new, and for just good music, however it comes, and to hear that I knew Royal very peripherally, but to hear that he was actually a big fan of those albums doesn't actually surprise me that much, but one of the things, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but also kind of person he's like, he was always kind of even in 50s, like he was friend of certain kind of people. It's normal, kind of the guy with the life that he had that will be open for certain things. But then you have this kind of narrow-minded jazz and prog guys that they say it has to be jazz, like and it has to be prog, like and I like everything. Like when I was a kid, I was listening with same pleasure like John Baez, Black Sabbath, and Keith Jarrett. For me there's no difference between Black Sabbath's first album and live in the Kelman concert. Like it's a music. People today, like they're kind of they like to be put in certain kind of boxes, and by definition I'm not the guy who you can put in box because of my very complex a complicated life I had. And then also the MoonJune is not progressive rock label, it's not jazz label, it's not fusion label, it's nothing. It's just a record label that makes music. One day can be free rock or free prog or free jazz. Next day can be like the most amazing kind of melodic progressive fusion. Like my next two albums are very relatively melodic. New album of Beleda with Tony Levin and Kenny Grohovsky. New album of Deva Bujana with Simon Phillips, Dave Eckel, Jimmy Johnson, and Ben Williams, and a bunch of those guys. Which means that I'm not sticking only with certain kind of things. I like to do other things because I don't want my label to be just that, oh, that's a guitar label, you go there. No, I'm not guitar label. Even though I have a lot of guitar players, I enjoy different things, and that's my enjoyment. And also I like to mix those things. See, now Deva Bujana, who is known for amazing melodic progressive fusion, he wants to do one of those crazy things, because he's capable. He never had a chance. He said, look, just put me with Markus, with other guys, and we will do something, if he have chance, And I like that because it's opening kind of other possibilities for these musicians that probably if I didn't tell them, probably they will never do this because they are affected by other things in their life. They are busy. They are they don't have time, or they that Vicky told me, look, I always wanted to do this, but nobody told me to do it. They say, okay, now let's do it.
And to Jerry and Henry, I agree completely too. The Post, I could take it as a great record. It's just you've had some real groundbreakers, more than a label your size maybe should normally have. But the last few years have been really something. We're getting getting kind of close to the end, where I think, Markus, you like to open it up for questions. So maybe one of the things, just before we kind of wrap up a conversation that's just kind of gone all over the place, but that's kind of how it is, isn't it? It's just to talk about, you just mentioned a couple albums that are coming. Are there any new musicians? There's some guys who are kind of new to the MoonJune family recently, but any guys that are coming that we don't know about that you're prepared to share?
Yeah, the last newcomer is Srđan Ivanović. I just released his album. He's a Bosnian-born, French, Paris, France-based drummer, composer, arranger, educator, amazingly talented musician, born in Sarajevo, but when he was kid, he had to leave Bosnia because the war to Greece. He lived in Holland, and then I met him because he was studying with Marko Đorđević, amazing Serbian drummer who lives here in New York, who teaching at Berkeley, and then we connected like 5-6 years ago on the same day when I connected with Nguyen Lee, and then and when I meet musicians, I don't know what will happen. I meet a lot of people, and then but somehow something was telling me that I will do something with him, and I'm very proud that he's first Bosnian-born musician on my label. But he's relatively new because the album was just released like last month, and there are a couple of that are on my kind of two guys that one Chilean bass maestro, Ernesto Holman, 72, 73 years old, known only in a couple of countries, is to me like it's like if you put like Jacko and Eberhard Weber together and go somewhere new with ethnic influences from Mapuche culture, that's it. And I promise him album, but it will come. And then this time, I'm looking for this guy Sisonke Chonti from South Africa, amazing sax player that I befriended 2 years ago when I was South Africa, and I don't know when, but I think I will do something with Dwiki and with Beledo, and maybe me and Beledo will go to South Africa to make album of one singer from Botswana, and it's I like these kind of things, and of course Alex Kolnick, the most amazing. We have 2 albums coming, one collective project, and he's like I'm not a metal guy. Testament, he's famous that world, a great band. But when I heard him with his trio, I said, "Wow, this guy is something."
I think I reviewed your first trio record, Alex.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
yeah, I think I'm almost positive. What was your first trio record called?
Goodbye to Romance.
Okay, then it must have been the second one.
Second one, Transformation.
That's the one. Yeah, great record.
But Alex is like, even though I know his music of the trio for many years, and we did also streaming of his trio last year, but his input in this kind of collective conversation with other musicians, it's simply mind-blowing. You will be one of the first people to receive this new album. It's simply like what he and Percy and Kenny Grehovsky and Tim Moser created is simply, it's beyond. And also Percy, Percy.
I have to credit Leo for making that happen.
Yeah, but I'm glad that it can happen. Also, I did that.
Kenny, I played with,
but that's what Leonardo does.
Yeah, Leo really made that happen.
Yeah, Alex, but I only made that happen because you live only like 5 minutes from.
That helped.
But
I'm right by Shapeshifter Lab. Yeah, that helps.
Do you play with Jane Getter as well?
I do. I'm on.
Yeah, I thought so.
As well.
Yeah. I know. I'm in the middle of a book, so I'm not writing reviews right now. But I reviewed the first 2, like the first on and then the live one.
Okay. Do remember? Like there is also another guy. He's from Israel originally, lived in New York for 20 years, and it's amazing sax player. Yeah. We did this live record. I shared it live with Alex, with Adam Holtzman, Lincoln Goins, and Robbie Amin, which is amazing album.
Wow.
And we have a project. He's a Sephardic father from Morocco and mother from Egypt, and I'm a huge fan of Sephardic music. And I think we will make Sephardic projects kind of in the future. And I'm very excited that because I grew up in Bosnia, and Bosnia was kind of music Sevdah. It's kind of influenced by Sephards who came to Ottoman Empire after expulsion from Spain and Portugal. And when I feel music from Spain, I feel there is something there, like, and offer being authentic Sephardic, like Moroccan, Egyptian, say, oh, we'll do it something. And I'm excited about this kind of project that have kind of, they're not just about music, but there is a story behind, because Ofer told me the whole story of his family. Then we said, oh, like your family, like 500 years ago was expelled from Portugal or Spain. They went through Italy, then to today's Bosnia, Ottoman Empire, to Lebanon, today's Israel, Turkey, Egypt, and ended up in Morocco. Virtually, that is probably the how his ancestors traveled, because Ottoman Empire was like so big.
Yeah.
And we are thinking about projects to see how we can implement this kind of historic thing with amazing music. And I already found amazing musician, not necessarily Sephardic, but some are Sephardic from Spain, amazing singer. And Asa will be, he qualifies, he's a half Sephardic. And we will
I'm
do,
a brother too, so,
and I like these kind of things, like, that kind of like history, culture, food, music. If you have all these things together, like, this is what I like. I like to be, it's not just music, not, oh, let's do album. Like, no, it's, it has to be something special,
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to stop it, so that maybe if Markus, if you want to open it up for questions, that would be
First of all, I want to use the opportunity to say thank you to Leonardo for everything he's done for me and everything he's done for everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean a huge number of people, both the people that listen to the music, the artists that you support, and the artists that you support also in their because we need to make money, right? And without people like you, nowadays it's become very, very difficult. And I'm super thankful that I've met you.
Yeah, I appreciate
I would
it.
agree with that.
And I'm happy that we can do something, and of course we'll do more, because we have to do at least 100 albums together, then we will decide what to do.
And also, here's to another 20 years.
Oh yeah, look,
Exactly.
Look, MoonJune can never die, because I'm very unorthodox company, and I cannot bankrupt, I cannot die. I might be without not releasing albums for quite a bit, but I will be always there. Like, I can release one album every 2 years or one album every week. It will be the same thing, I don't have plan, like, there is no business plan. Oh, we have to do this. No, we release album the way that they're coming to us, and
Yeah.
Hey, so Leonardo, are you planning to move to Europe?
Yeah, I'm planning to move to Spain. I like Malaga for various reasons, because it's very well connected, big airport, very important for me, with connections. Also, I have a friend of mine who can help me with MoonJune Records, and it's 320 sunny days a year, and I lived before New York. I lived in southern Italy. I had 305 sunny days, not as good as Malaga, but Bari was almost close, and I love Mediterranean. 31 years of New York is enough. I'm very grateful to this amazing city, and I'm 59, and I'm ready for new challenges. And also, I would like to develop more bookings in Europe, because I don't book in Europe. I have agents in Europe. Or people that we are doing things together. I occasionally book some festivals, but I want to develop kind of, because I think I was talking to my friend Derek Schulman, like, there's a more and more space for independent music people now, because these kind of big guys are disappearing. And then Leo Lyons from 10 years after came to me, said, look, can you book me? We have mutual friends, we know each other, but he came to me, and I know that if I'm moving to certain places, I can attract certain interest, because I do exactly what certain older guys need, but also I would like to attract certain kind of younger guys, or work more with kind of people like Markus and Asaf and other guys, Mark, Yaron, like, in European context, because probably there is a much more opportunity for this kind of gigs that we are doing, less traveling and less expenses, because to come to USA, it's cheap to come to USA, but then visas, I'm doing now Gary Husband's visa. It's, Markus knows, like, it takes forever, and it's money, and so many limitations, and that's why a lot of people do not come here, because
well, and Europe is good too, just because, I mean, I used to remember, Jan Gabarek would do just like a German tour, and he'd do like 25 dates in like 30 days, because there's just that many places to play.
I'm not it's not intentional that I except New York-based Beledo, who is from Uruguay, and Moraine, that I don't have American artists. It's not, and before Marvin, who are originally from Israel, but they're based in Chicago. Like, somehow I see that a lot of guys that I'm kind of on my label that they are booking, they're kind of more kind of Eurocentric, like, including, look, my good friend Frank Gabale moved to Barcelona, like, it took him like 6-7 months to do that because of the COVID. But he's in Barcelona now. Gergo Balai, his drummer, he's in Barcelona now. A lot of people are moving there, and also there's a lot of these musicians that I would like to, be closer to them, like those that I work with and new guys. Like I would like to go from Malaga to Tunisia. It's a direct flight, and to see Dafir Youssef and other Tunisian musicians. Like for example, I go to Italy, I go to visit these festivals. Of course I will be coming back to USA, and my son will stay in New York. We keep apartment here in Queens, and we have a lot of tours, like especially with Stickman Soft Machine and Gary Husby next year. But I think it's I want new challenges. I want new things in my life. I never plan to be here forever. But 31 years is enough. I learned a lot. I still have a lot to learn. I'm good student of life, and I would like to see what happens.
Sounds good. I'll have to come visit.
Of course.
Okay, so any questions or any more? Yeah, Alex, go. You want to say something, Alex?
You have to be unmute.
That's the first time that's happened to me. Unmute. There's so many jokes about that. I've never done it. Anyway, I was just going to say Leo is ahead of the curve here with Spain, because it is happening. Like since I first heard about him moving there, I've heard about more musicians, and even Michael League, who's just one of these guys. He somehow managed to make his band like really like crossover big. He decided to move there. He's now there, and he's got multiple projects, and he's got there's a whole scene now building because of that. So anyway, Leo, you're not going to be alone over there.
Yeah,
so Barcelona is the new Berlin.
Exactly right. Yeah. Well said.
Berlin is also amazing city. Like Markus always told me, come to Berlin, but come on, like in December, the day ends at 3:00 in the afternoon.
You're talking to a Canadian. Don't even bother.
Only like 2.5 hours to fly to Berlin. I can be there all the time. It's easy.
Hey, Leonardo, I have a question for you. How did you hook up with Ronaldo and the Loaf? And are you going to bring any other Ralph artists over to the label?
I'm talking. I cannot see you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me. Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I was wondering how you hooked up with Ronaldo and the Loaf,
No.
and also if you're going to be bringing any other Ralph artists over.
Yeah, look, I can bring some artists over. It depends on interest and money. Steve Hillage and Gong. They would like to come to tour in USA, but all depends on financial things. And same with Phil Manzanera. And we all depend on like Soft Machine will come because it's kind of in the last couple of tours we didn't make so much money, but they wanted to play, and it's very rough to play in USA because it's very vast country and you have to travel a lot. There is a lot of expenses, and there's oversaturation of music. It's not easy to travel to USA to tour, and but I'm always in there. Like I will be doing a relatively big tour of Leo Lyons and his version of 10 Years After next year, hopefully. And Frank Gabale told me that he would like to come to USA only in 2024. No tours before 2024. And but Scott Henderson, I don't know, like maybe but we have tour of Levin Brothers. Pete Levin is here. We have some gigs in June. We have 8 gigs. We have also this band packed with Alex Kolnick in July. Of course, everybody is busy, has other projects. We might do a couple of gigs also in September. Now we have 3 gigs, maybe we'll have more. And, we are trying to do what we can, and, some bands have potential because they're all free. And, Alex is another projects, it's, and we try what we can, and, but definitely whatever I do, you will be all kind of, you will know. I will send my famous newsletter to everybody.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. And happy birthday to you tomorrow.
Yep.
Thank you.
So
Leonardo, greetings from Prague, everybody. Can I have a question, please?
Okay.
I come from Czech Republic, and there was this, due to political situation in 70s and 80s, the rock bands were basically distributing their tapes, I mean, very independently, which was for political reason. It was actually illegal, but they had to do it all themselves. They were recording tapes and so forth, writing letters to fans. Do you think that the music industry is actually coming to this place again somehow? Like this will be normal for independent musicians. This will become normal situation.
Look, something will always happen. Now there is a more space for independent music, but the problem is not. What is the problem? That there are no tools to promote the music. There are no radio stations. There is no media. See, like in this country, we have 330 million people, and we have only 3 jazz magazines. And every magazine can put like 25 to 30 reviews. How people can know what you do, and then when you send kind of reviews, like a CD for review, like or download, like how they can choose what to review. There is immensity, and also independent musicians face this kind of thing. Like everybody's putting albums. There is too many products and not so much demand. And Spotify is not the main reason that music doesn't sell. It's the complete and total oversaturation of the market, and the fact that there are no tools to promote your music. You have to be very loud, very vocal, and you have to play. And otherwise, your album can be the greatest album of all times, but nobody will know about it. And then musicians will be forced to make their music by their own, and maybe exchange their music with other people via digital way, because it's kind of very convenient. But I really don't know. See, like I occasionally I think about those things, but I just realized many years ago that this is not something that I have to think about it, because it's not my priority. My priority is like to do what I do, and whatever difficulties there are. Like see, like every country faces their own difficulties. Indonesia, they have other difficulties, like and in Czech Republic, I was in your country in early 80s several times, and I know the situation, and I bought some albums, like that weren't able to buy them legally, but I really don't know. Whatever happens, we have to adjust and do what we do the best we can, according to our knowledge, experience. And see, like I had a good chat with Mark Finfield some years ago. I really don't care what Spotify does, because if I have to think about Spotify and all these things, they're just big distractions. Like, I just want to do, put my friends in a place to play music, to everybody's happy, to book some tours and see if we can make it possible. And then to think about, how, I really don't know. Like, I'm not expert in that. I'm not expert in music business. I'm not expert in those things. I'm only expert in befriending people and doing things what I am able to do. That's the only thing that I know how to do.
One of the things I was just going to add, just because people are talking about, the challenges getting the music into people's ears and missing college radio and hoping that internet radio could be the new thing. To me, the issue is also that you have way too many sort of a la carte sources for music, like, and Spotify being probably the biggest one, along with YouTube, which is you can get access to so much music, and how do you get people's attention when there's that much music out there and people are getting it for next to nothing?
Also, how first thing, like first place, how you can listen to all that, how you can actually music, because like for people of our generation, there is a current music, there is a old music, there is a current music of old artists, which means that like if I have kind of a wide range of preferences in music, like from avant-garde, classic rock, blues, reggae, ethnic, jazz, pro, whatever, how I can actually listen everything. Like people like constantly sends me new music. that's why I understand why people are not buying so much MoonJune music, because it's not that they don't want to buy or they don't want to listen. They cannot, because there is so much. And it's not only because of Spotify. Of course, it's Spotify and YouTube, but also it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's a Twitter. Like, we have so many distractions in our life. Like I see that on the gigs. Like, when I go to the gigs, Yaron can say, like, I watch the gig. Of course, I take some pictures. Occasionally, I post some live pictures, but I watch the gig. When people go to the gig, they are talking to lovers, saying how much money they have on their bank account, and say, "Wow, that was amazing music." No, it wasn't, because how you know? Because you haven't heard, and because there are so many distractions. Or one day, like, telephone was ringing, but was silent. And the guy picked up the telephone in middle of the most amazing solo of Alan Holdsworth. He ran out to answer the fucking phone. Like, I mean, look, we live in this kind of society where we have so many distractions, and, why on all levels. And this is the problem, because we have too much choices. We have too much. You go to supermarket, it's nice to have 77 kinds of cereals. But if you want to have cereals, you have to spend like 20 minutes just to choose what kind of cereal you want, unless you have your favorite. Like, this is the abundance. That's why we have to do what we do. And that's why I don't want to look. I love Anil Prasad much, but he complains too much about Spotify. I really don't have time for that, because I want to focus on Alex Kolik, or Markus or Yaron, or I want to focus on my trips to South Africa, Indonesia, or Brazil, or to tour of Stickman, or Leo Lyons or Soft Machine. Like, that's what I don't have time to listen to these complaints. Like, it's nice. I think
Feels awesome, but he's very passionate.
Yeah, but somebody should talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but I personally, it doesn't involve me. I want to do other things, because if I start thinking about other things, then how I can do, already I'm oversaturated. If I start thinking about other things that I will oversaturate in my life, then I already have little time. I only have 72 hours a day, and but I just want to do what I like. My wife always say, "Oh, you like what you do. You do what I like." That's what I do. I like what I do. I do what I like.
The secret to how do you listen to so much music? In-ear monitors while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
No, I just joking, but yeah, well, actually not completely. I do that, but you absorb music almost subliminally. But yeah, it's difficult to figure out how to get away from the distractions, and the only thing you can do is make the decision not to let them distract you.
But also this thing, I had kind of, when I was in England on tour with Deva Bujan, Nicholas Meyer, with Jimmy Astley, Asaf Sirkis, I met my friend Bill Bruford. We were talking about Asaf. Asaf is his favorite new drummer. And then he said something like, Asaf will never be famous for one simple reason, because he cannot post in 60 minutes of Instagram everything that he's able to do. Because this is the thing, if you are a very complex musician, if you are very talented, how you can show what you are able to do in a very short amount of time, because today's society is driven by watching this kind of short clips of musicians that can do kind of so many things in a very short amount of time. And you have this kind of very complex musicians that are doing so many things and in so many different levels that you cannot explain that in a very short amount of time. And that's why this kind of sensations, that they are on internet, that they are playing 100 million notes in 30 seconds on Instagram, they get more attention. And and today, even Joe McLaughlin said in my interview, if he started, that was in 2014 when we were in Bali, in 2014, say, if I started now in 2014, I will never be what I am. And he used the example of Alex Makche. Say, look, Alex Makche probably is more talented than me, but he will never be famous, because I was lucky to live in 60s. I was lucky to get a call from from Miles Davis. I was lucky to go to New York. I was lucky to meet Ian Hammer and Billy Cobham, and I was lucky. And actually, I had to work very hard for that luck. It's not that somebody gave you. If you are 60s, 70s, and 80s, and also 90 musician, there is a possibility to do something. Or if you are playing in major band, if you are coming out of King Crimson, Zappa, Joe Zawinul, Weather Report, or I don't know, Miles Davis, all these musicians have their own career. Today, you can play with major musicians. You cannot have career because things change. Look at Nicholas Meyer, played for 6 years with Jeff Beck. It doesn't work anymore. And especially if you are doing slightly different music. And before, you are John Patitucci, you play with Chick Corea, then you have your career, because those guys are amazing, and music industry existed. But today it's very difficult to be known for what you do. Then you are become a niche guy, like Mark Finfield, or who is staying home, who is amazing guitar player. But it's very difficult, for him to be, because he cannot explain in very short amount of time what he's able to do. You need time. You need time to understand what is about music. You need time to understand what he's doing. You cannot just go there and, watch me on YouTube. Nobody watches YouTube. People are seeing first 3-4 minutes, they skip, they see next 10 minutes, then they skip, they see the end. Very few people see the whole thing, and look, we live in a very challenging world. And but my thing is my life was always challenged since I was a little kid, and I'm used to it. I'm just doing it. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, totally understand.
Yeah. Any other question? Maybe one more last question.
Yeah, I'd just like to say something.
Okay.
If it's possible.
Of course.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to say that I feel very, very lucky to be part of MoonJune, and not only MoonJune, the record company, of course, but personally, my connection to you, Leonardo, and a lot of the people who are here, Markus, Mark, Yaron, all these great people that I've met, and had great experience recording and playing with for a long, long time now. So I just like to say that I feel really lucky to be a part of this, and
Likewise.
It's been just a real trip, and like John was saying, that those La Casa Murada sessions, those are the one that made a difference, probably for MoonJune, but also for me personally. When I think about those sessions, and they were all very, very, very different. None of these sessions were similar. Even if we had the same people, they were all very different. But what I remember is just an experience of flow the whole time, and I think that flow could always only be created with just creating an atmosphere, which you, Leonardo, have a huge part in creating. And it's that atmosphere, it's that vibe of flow, and I like to call this yes and. It's always a yes and let's do something with this, and then take it somewhere else. So that's always been my experience with doing stuff with you, Leonardo, or for MoonJune in general. So yeah, thanks, man, and happy birthday.
You are the second most recorded guy on the MoonJune.
Good. Yeah, I lost count. I think, what is it, like 12 albums?
About albums, and the omnipresent Asaf Sirkis on drums.
I'm just going to butt in now and say, Leo, thank you, massive thank you to Leo. And
hi there. Can I tell something? It's Boris here. Ciao,
yeah.
everybody.
Go ahead.
Here. And well, I really wanted to say again what Asaf said. I also feel myself very lucky to be part of this big family. MoonJune is really a family. When you all were talking about, I was really thinking about that, because MoonJune, since the day I went into MoonJune, I had the great opportunity, thanks to Leonardo, to meet so many amazing musicians, to be inspired by so great music. And so I think that Leonardo's birthday, which is near to arrive, it's like a birthday for music, because I always told about him like a kind of romantic warrior. I'm so proud, because he used to call myself a warrior, but I think that he's the real warrior, and I think we all music lover had to be proud and be grateful for what Leonardo is doing to music in this last 20 years, because he did so many things. And you can't believe, I mean, as a musician, we all are very depressive people, you know, and sometimes when I feel, I'm pretty optimistic, lucky me, but sometimes when I feel myself depressed a little bit or sad or whatever, I just give a call to Leonardo and he gives me his energy like a volcano, you know, and this is something amazing, guys. I really tell you, it's like kind of, you know, a battery more than we have for the iPhone or computer or whatever. It's a real battery that we all need for our creativity and for our music. So really, from the deep of my heart, thank you very much for all you did for music, and you all will do for music. And really, thanks a lot, man. Thank you very much. And of course, a big hug from mommy and daddy to you for your birthday.
That's like Mark. Okay, last thing. Like Mark Winfield wanted to say something, but he was kind of came a little bit late.
At the same time, yeah, I just wanted to say it's kind of difficult to overstate the influence that Leo has on the music that has happened. Marcus kind of talked a bit about this, and I've always found that Leo's creative input into what happens in a recording session, and even before the recording sessions, in the discussions that go into listening to the musical sketches that might turn into a piece, and just discussing how to approach a piece, and during the sessions, things that go on. It's just hard to overstate just how important that is, I think, creatively to what comes out the other end. And just, I mean, so many things. I mean, you know, typically in a recording session, Leo will have inputs which are like pivotal to what happens. He'll just say something like, you know, do more of this, or, you know, do less of that, or just something that really is really important to making the thing.
Like make the solo longer.
Yeah, or make so yeah, I can't thank you enough, and for all the stuff you're doing, and the amazing.
No, thank you. Also, thank everybody else. Like, because, you know, as I said, like, you know, I wasn't fortunate to have a family in my life for various reasons, and you know, I created my own family, and you know, it's of course I have now family, but you know, when I grew up in Yugoslavia, in Italy, like, you know, it was different. But now this is my family. Like, yeah, you know, they're all my friends, and you know, and not only musicians but also fans. You know, and you know, like when I had office, I quit my office because I was supposed to move to Spain. I didn't move because of COVID, but people like coming from different countries and fans, like they buy albums, say, "Can I visit you? Can we have lunch together?" I say, "Of course," you know, and I became a friend with fans, you know, like, you know, and I answer every single email to everybody.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Can I say a couple of words, just very short? I don't want to embarrass Leonardo even more. Everybody said great stuff. I mean, well said, Asaf and Mark and everybody. But yeah, just really many thanks, Leonardo. And, you know, I just love you and miss you a lot. I mean, man, it has been too long.
Yeah.
You know, I lost too much weight since I don't have all these meals with you. I mean, it's just crazy.
I'm also losing my weight. You know, we have to.
And it's really bad. Both of us, we're gonna disappear, and it's really bad. So we better meet again before.
Yaron are notorious like eater. Like whenever we meet in Japan, Indonesia, or Spain, Italy, like, you know, so, you know, like we like to eat, and we post these pictures, and there's a lot of food, you know, and
No, just really, Leonardo, thank you so much, and just all the best, and just want to see you and all of you other guys. I miss you so much, my God. Hope to see you in real again soon. You know, it has been.
Tomorrow is my first flight since my famous flight coming back from Tokyo, when I was with Stickman and then with Markus and Gary. March 8th, I came to New York, and for a guy that flies so much, tomorrow is my first trip. I'm going to Miami. Wow. But you know, it's, yeah, I feel like kind of claustrophobic, like, you know, I'm, you know, but tomorrow when I go to airport, I say, wow, that's it. I'm in, and then I'm touring with my one of my favorite band, Levin Brothers. They're amazing guys. Like Pete Levin is here, and Tony, and Jeff Champ and Jeff Siegel, drummer. And I said to them, like, guys, I have to be present. I have to be on the match table. I have to be there, like, because, that's the essence of my thing, like traveling, being on tour, promoting albums, that's what I enjoy, like, and I miss that. I think we all miss that, and it was very rough year for me. I lost so much business, it was tremendous year for me, like, but we are doing okay, and there is a new life and new things, new challenges, and things will be okay. And maybe we can repeat this, like, John and Markus, and and
yeah,
anytime.
Hey, thank you also to John Kelman for the wonderful interview with like many questions that kind of shocked me when I saw them, but it all turned out very well.
And I didn't ask hardly any of them.
Exactly. Okay, thank you so much. So this video will be on YouTube as well, on my channel. And, if you want to spread the word about Leonardo, you can share the video later. And I'm trying to do more of these.
I would like to say, like, I thank everybody, but the reason that I want to promote myself as a MoonJune, it's not because I understand that when I work with Alan Holsworth or with Tony or with Stop Machine, with Scott Henderson and Phil Manzanera and PFM, kind of it's easy to connect with people and promote things. But when I promote like myself and MoonJune, it's mostly about those guys that are less known, that are coming from Bosnia, from Serbia, from Indonesia, from Chile, from China, because I know that I give them voice. I know that this is important for them because somehow I can influence people because of my background, not only last 20 years, but also before that. And, because a couple of times people say, oh, it's all about yourself. No, it's not about myself. It's about MoonJune because of family. And I have this kind of a very good opportunity tool to talk about MoonJune because I'm talking about artists, like, but I thank you, everybody. And many of you I will see, Pete, I will see you very soon, and some of you will see you when I see you. And Markus and Asaf, I will see you in July.
Pete wanted to say something though.
Oh, Pete. Tio Pedro.
Oh, you're trying to stop up. We're saying nice things about you because it's your birthday. You know that.
Yeah, because on May 18 is different thing,
And we've been rehearsing, and every day we have a bagel, and we think of you. Not toasted.
Not toasted. Yeah, because
I just wanted to add, and I'll be quick. It's about MoonJune, which really comes down to what you do and your attitude about music. That it's, I thought you only did prog, and I learned it's prog. There's so many things to listen to and so many things to get into, and the labels don't mean anything after a while. It's all just music. It's either good or it's bad, but it's music. And I think that attitude, as you've carried it into MoonJune, it's there, that expresses it. I don't know how many of you know or get involved or read Downbeat magazine, which is traditionally for decades has been a jazz magazine, probably certainly one of the biggest ones. There's a readers poll every year. You vote for instrumentalists, for bands, for recordings, and for record labels, for jazz labels. And was it the last readers poll or the one before? I think it was the last one. The jazz label of the year, record label of the year. There's ECM, Blue Note, Motema, and MoonJune.
Yep.
What the hell is a MoonJune? It's like, it's what you do, the way you get it out there that makes that happen.
All kind of jazz,
well deserved.
All kind of jazz, because it's that's But anyway, thank you very much for everybody, and see you soon, some of you, and we can do another time.
Yes, we will.
Safe
Thank you,
travels.
Leonardo. Safe travels tomorrow.
Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
bye-bye, everybody.
you.
Happy birthday. Bye-bye.